Hello and welcome to Power to the People with me, Graeme Pryce. So, Tommy Robinson is in the news again, or Stephen Yaxley Lennon, and as usual, there are dopey dumbasses all over Twitter and Facebook claiming Tommy is in jail for speaking the truth, and that any and all actions ever taken against Tommy in the whole history of his repugnant rise to racist recognition were just political. They're all out to get him. They're not, of course. There is not only irrefutable evidence that Tommy lied in his documentary entitled Silenced that led to severe harassment for a 15-year-old Syrian refugee and his family, but Tommy also admitted his guilt in court. So no, he's not in jail for speaking the truth. Just like, when he was put in jail for admitting mortgage fraud, or assaulting a police officer, or possession of cocaine, or entering the US with an illegal passport, and any of the other various crimes he's committed. Tommy has served 4 prison sentences before this one. None of them were for anything remotely political. But yeah, sure, everyone is lying. Tommy is a saint and a warrior for justice, isn't he? Of course. Let's have a quick chat about his latest ingenious attempt to advertise himself to the imbeciles of the nation and secure whatever they might be able to donate to him out of this month's universal credit. Right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I noticed that 53% of people who watch my videos weren't subscribed. The pain. Come on, just have a quick check that you've subbed, liked and rang the bell. Make a skinny old scouser a little bit happier today. Those of us that live in the real world know full well that Robinson is in jail for contempt of court. He lost a libel case regarding his inflammatory documentary that he produced in order to drum up anti-Muslim sentiment and was ordered by the court to never show it again. He ignored that order and continued to use it to rabble-rouse idiots and the easily misinformed, and was eventually rearrested and charged with contempt of court, as it had already been proven that the allegations in his documentary were false and defamatory. He didn't really have a leg to stand on. I've had a few gullible gimboids try and tell me that he just admitted it because he wanted a shorter sentence, and that is practically the only true thing you will hear from the followers of Flopsy Lemon. However, this isn't because, as they claim, he's innocent. He isn't innocent. He admitted it because he knew the court could easily prove their case, and he knows full well how the UK court system works. He's been through it a few times. He knew that if he pleaded not guilty and forced a much larger and more expensive trial, it would be viewed very poorly by the judge and he'd be likely to receive a much longer sentence. Now, he does enjoy a little stay in the big house at His Majesty's pleasure because it allows the inbred ignoramuses that he's fooled into following him to think he's being silenced. But he doesn't want to be there too long, obviously. He wants to get back on the gack on a beach in Mallorca, doesn't he? It hasn't really worked out the way he wanted this time, though. You see, there actually is a 2-tier policing system in the UK, but it isn't rigged against right-wing, grifting, racist little white men. It's based on a deep and ongoing institutional racism embedded in the UK police force. If you turn up at court for a crime that carries a custodial sentence with a brown face, you're 3 times more likely to get a custodial sentence, and it's likely to be a longer sentence as well. This has led to there being quite a lot of Muslims in UK prison systems. There was a few frightening followers of the Quran in the jail that stiff one Waxy Lemon was originally incarcerated in. And they don't think much of the fact that he's grifted literally millions from stupid racists by convincing them to hate Muslims. Understandable, really. However, I don't condone violence, and neither does the prison service, so Tommy was segregated for his own safety after a plot to harm him was uncovered. bear in mind that what most people fear about going to prison is the people that they will encounter and be expected to live alongside. The lack of privations and privacy and boredom. Well, Tommy doesn't have to encounter other prisoners anymore. And he's got his own cell, so he enjoys a level of privacy that very few incarcerated people can expect. And as such, there's very little chance of him actually getting into much bother. That has meant his original 18-month sentence has been shortened somewhat, and he's actually due to be released in July. Apparently he isn't very happy about his conditions though, and he's attempted to appeal his segregation order and be allowed to mingle with the other prisoners beforehand. He's tried to claim his segregation was political and intended to humiliate him. No shocker there. It seems every time he wants to play the victim for some reason, he does so by claiming he's being politically attacked and silenced. He isn't. There is a very real risk of serious harm to him, unsurprisingly, because the other prisoners aren't as dumb as a lot of the UK public are, and they know he's a dishonest racist who tells lies about brown people. The judge utterly dismissed his claim that his segregation is politically motivated, based on real and tangible evidence that some of the most dangerous people in the prison service intended to seriously harm him. The judge actually said about his case, "On the contrary, all the evidence shows that he was segregated for his own protection and in the interests of preserving the safety of other prisoners and staff. It was not mere speculation that he would be at risk from Muslim prisoners. He himself had said, when first detained at HMP Belmarsh, that he had a conflict with the followers of Islam." He is visited every day by an NHS nurse or doctor to assess his mental health now, and there's been extra steps taken to ameliorate any effects of his isolation. You try getting a mental health specialist to see you, for one day, let alone every day, for the next 3 months. So what is he up to then? Well, I certainly can't see into the malignant mind of a man like Robinson, but we can speculate a little, can't we? He does like a bit of sympathy, and he might have been concerned that the moth-brained morons who flutter around him like a light bulb in a dimly lit room don't know just how hard he has it living in a cell on his own and being visited by a doctor every day. He may have known full well that his appeal would be refused, but that it would also be very widely publicised and they'd all get to hear about it. On another level, he could be well aware that he's at risk, but he's also well aware that the prison staff know he's at risk, so he's unlikely to be left in a cell with anybody who's likely to want to harm him. And he's also quite likely to be being watched quite closely all the time as well. Maybe he's happy to take a bit of a kick in and, get into a little scrap in the courtyard one day, because he could certainly work with a story like that to drum up a bit more support and a few more donations, couldn't he? And maybe he's just bored and knows that spending his last few months in segregation, unmentioned by the media, won't result in as much of a large crowd of misinformed miscreants and morons gathering at the prison gates. And he could be gagging for a line or a smoke or something. So I know people that have been in prison. The idea that there's no drugs in there is laughable. UK prisons are drowning in drugs. It's a massive issue. Now, the court has agreed he's in danger, but if he can wangle his way back into the general prison population, he can probably get his hands on some nefarious nose candy, can't he? Win-win for squelching flat one there, eh? There is one last interesting aspect of this, though. His application to challenge his prison conditions has meant a separate prosecution for refusing to comply with a search of his phone by police using counter-terrorism powers has been delayed. That's a bit peculiar, isn't it? I wonder if it's because he knows they'll find he was sharing lists of venues for racist riots on Telegram last summer, by any chance. I think you get quite a lot more for incitement than you do for contempt of court. So what do you think he's up to? What What do you think of this being a pretty big media story? Should we be just ignoring him or highlighting his social depravity for all to see? Is the media just playing into his hands when they report on practically everything he does? Is he playing them like a fiddle? Let me know what you think in the comments and I'll respond to as many as I can. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I'd be very surprised if there were any of Tommy's fuckwitted followers that have watched all of this video, but I commend them if they have. I don't think I've been very reserved in my description of their hero, have I? If you think Tommy is a hero and everything I've said is just lies and it's all just because the left hates Tommy exposing the truth, then tell me about it and I'll explain how you are misinformed and help you identify the sources of the misinformation that you're using to gaslight your own dumb, gullible ass. And then you'll probably insult me and run away and carry on believing whatever Tommy tells you, but, you know, it's all a laugh, innit? Sometimes. Speaking of which, if you're not one of those and you have had a giggle with me, you can support the channel with a one-off donation through the Buy Me a Coffee page. Make a donation through PayPal or join as a patron. The links for which are all unjustly incarcerated in the descriptions box below. And the join button for memberships is also, as always, below. Now obviously, that isn't all I've got to say. But it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. So I'll laugh. Now obviously, that isn't all I have to say. But it is as much right at the bloody end. Spit it out, I am. Oh, not you, love, don't worry.